Okay, everyone. So these are the 10 fighters that I got in my 2-player starter set. I was quite lucky. I got a good variation on fighters. We're going to go through what everything means on the cards, and then we'll have a look at some, which ones I think work best, and what options I've got when I'm picking a gang. So the first thing is the fighter origins, and where they're from, basically in Rome. And there's 4 of these in the game. There is Palatine, which is represented by the wolf's head here. I've only got 1 of those. There's the Aventine, which is the horse, and in the red banner, the Palatine's purple. The Aventine there, I've only I've just got 1 of those. So a bit lacking from those parts of Rome. None of them decided to come join me. Over here we've got Subra. Subra, I got three fighters from there. So again, a nice selection. So with these guys, what happens is when you use fighters from the same background, basically you can get some bonuses. And by far the one I got the most of was I have 5 fighters from Circus Maximus. They probably have my favourite skill as well, which we'll go into now. But firstly, if your fighters from Palatine, basically every time they use one of their items, instead of putting it into the use pile on a 4, 5, or 6, you can put it back into your hand. The Aventine gains 1 extra defense dice from any attack that's by a denarius rather than a basic attack, but only on replies, not on the actual normal fights. Subaru can reroll any multiple 1 results that have heralded a servant of Orcus. Again, that's an in-game mechanic. If you roll multiple 1s, it affects how many hit dice. It takes away hit dice from counter attacks, basically. So you can reroll any additional 1s on that, so more chance of getting hits, or not getting hits taken away. Possibly my favourite, or I feel like the most useful skill from any of the fighters there is the Circus Maximus one. Basically, the movement of a fighter from Circus Maximus never drops below 4 inches, regardless of the amount of wounds taken. So it just keeps your gang a lot more mobile, especially if later on in the game if they may have picked up a few wounds here and there. Especially good on the fighters with the lower health, because it means they can keep moving even though wounds would generally slow them down. The next part on the cards that's again it's a bit more limited is the 6 different blessings, or 6 different gods that they can worship, basically. Now I was quite limited, I believe, with what I actually got here. I think I got pretty much mostly the same 3. I got Saturn 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I got Jupiter once. Minerva I got 3, 4 times, and I got Mercury once. So I didn't get Mars. Mars, basically, how the blessings work is once per turn you can roll a dice, and on a 6 you get to use that blessing. Some of them are any time during the turn, some of them are specific points, which we'll get into in a second. But Mars, which I didn't get any of, on a roll of a 6, basically you can use any other fighter's skill on the table. Every fighter has their own skill. When I look at the individual cards, we'll go through that. But basically, with a fighter of Mars, you can exchange your skill for one of theirs. Apollo, again, I didn't get any Apollos, but if Apollo favours this fighter, add 1 unavoidable wound in addition to any range damage that they cause this turn. So as long as you cause at least 1 damage, you can cause an extra 1 unavoidable damage. If Jupiter favours this fighter, so I did have 1 single Jupiter card here, which is Cornelius. Basically, on a roll of 6, you can look at 1 opposing face-down denarii. So just gives you a little bit of a bonus knowing what an opponent might have on that roll of a 6. Saturn. So I've got 4 Saturns. If Saturn favours this fighter, choose a denarii at random from your opponent's coin bank and discard it as though it were used. Now, I believe that's wrong. I'm reading this from the quick reference. In the actual rules, they've changed that because that was a bit too powerful. So the actual rules are, I think, on a roll of a 6, if you've used a coin this turn, you can instantly replace it with another coin. So, yeah, it's not as powerful as what I've just said. It's not discarding opponent's coins. It's giving you a chance to replace your own if you've used them. So, a bit more in the spirit of the game, giving yourself a buff rather than giving you quite powerful. Possibly, I could have 4 attempts a turn to try and discard my opponent's coins if it was the other one. So, so ignore the first thing I said. It's you can replace your own coins if you've used them this turn. So if you use your coin and it's a discard one, you discard it, and on a roll of 6, you can instantly give them another coin rather than having to wait till the start of the next turn. Mercury. I believe I have 1 Mercury here. Yep. So that is, on a 6, I can reroll a dice in either attack or defense this turn. So, quite a simple one. Just gives you a reroll on either an attack or defense roll. Minerva, she is possibly one of the most useful ones again. I've got 4 fighters with her, and on a roll of a 6, I can heal a wound, or a flesh as they call it. So, yeah, straight up. Roll a dice, and on a 6, I get a wound back. So not bad. Not bad to have on quite a few of my fighters. I think it was 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So 4 fighters have Minerva there. Healing in this game is useful. I've already said about wounds on the reducing speed, and we'll have a look at that now. So every fighter has the same set of, a similar set of stats. Which are these numbers down the side. The points value is a combination of all these stats added up together. Now the lowest you can get is 18, and that is 5535, and the highest you can get is 25, which is 7747. So, what have I got here? I'll point out firstly that Cornelia here is a special edition. Because she is actually only 22 points, 7645. However, it's printed on the card 24. So she's limited edition in that she costs way too many points. Well, not way too many because there's not that huge variation. But having used her in game already, me and my opponent, we've already said she's 22 points. So looking at my cards here, I've got a variation from 19. Is my lowest, and I've got 1 card there with the 25 stats. So I've got 1 full statted card and 1 almost lowest, but not quite. And the stats themselves. The top stat here is flesh. That is how much health you have, and also how far you move in game. As that decreases, so does your movement speed. You have your basic attack value. Again, that's how many dice you roll when doing a basic blood attack or brawl attack. The higher the better, obviously, in that respect. Again, lowest it can be is 5, highest it can be is 7. Then you have your defense value. This is 3 or 4, and this is just how many defense dice you get to roll in reply to any attacks. Yeah, it's only ever going to be 3 or 4. There's not much variation on the defense. You get different cards that can buff that. And then the final score is your agility. Agility is how many dice you get to roll when trying to test to jump over things. Certain cards attack agility rather than your defense. That also decreases as you get wounds. So just be aware of that. So if you're trying to jump over something, or leap across a building or something, anything like that, anything cool like that, and your fighter's a bit wounded, you're far more likely to injure yourself more, because you'll be rolling less dice, and it's basically 1 dice per point in that. And you've got your points value at the bottom there, which we've already discussed. So, looking at the cards there, I've got a good variety. and it's sort of deciding how I want to build a gang going forwards with these cards, and obviously I will be picking up more as we go along. So, first thing to do is decide at the start of a game with your opponent what points value you're going to be playing to. In the book, it says between 85 to 100 for a couple of the scenarios. Sometimes it will say how many gang members you should use rather than a points value. But basically, it always says to discuss an appropriate points value with your opponent. So I've played a couple of games at 125 points. The games were very fast, took about an hour. And that's while we were learning the game as well. So it's a quick game. I think it lasted about 4 or 5 turns. Maybe a few more than that. But yeah, so the game's a fast pace. You can definitely get a few games in an afternoon if you're playing with 4 or 5 fighters aside. I really want to try this game out with multiple players. So I've bought 2 more fighters, which I'm just waiting for now. That will give me a chance to play some 3-player sort of 4 gang member fights. Hopefully I get some fighters that balance out so we can play that. So how would I use these guys in game? I've got a couple of options. I've got 5 fighters. Assume we're building a 5-fighter gang. I do have 5 fighters all from Circus Maximus, which I've already said is my favourite one. So I've got the option of just using those 5 straight up and getting what we call synergy with the fighters. Synergy means they're from the same place in Rome. So they can move through each other, they can shoot through each other, and they also get an extra dice if they're ganging up together in close combat, so they get +2 dice rather than +1. I might be missing something, but if I am, then I'm sure I'll be corrected by someone watching the video. Points wise, this is 22, 21, 42, 66, 89, 112 points. 112 points straight up, which if I was playing a 125 point game like I did the other day, that would give me 13 points to spend on items. Leaving, I would miss out on my strongest fighter, Sabonis, and stats wise it gives me a reasonably good selection. I've got Augustina here, who is owed of favour by a man of influence. She's beloved, so mobs never panic if they are already in contact with this fighter when they would otherwise. So if my opponent's trying to use sneaky tactics to crush me with a mob, as long as she's there, then they can't do that. She's only got 5 health, 7 attack, which is really good, 4 defense, which is the better of defense, but she's only got 5 agility as well, so she's not very good at jumping around places. She's not very survivable, but she can hit quite hard, so a bit of a glass hammer with her. So you could either buff her with some healing items or some armor, or just give her a decent weapon and get her to charge in and hit stuff, but expect her to die fairly quickly. Justina saw parents killed in an alley behind the theatre. Well, it happens. Her fight skill is greasy. This is a quite an interesting one, and basically she can't be grappled in a brawl, so she can't be thrown off buildings and things. So what I did with her in her last game was gave her a bow and got her up somewhere high, knowing that she's unlikely to get thrown off. So 6 health, 6 attack, 4 defense, and only 5 agility again, which is not great agility. So she's not very maneuverable again, but she's got a bit more balance between health and attack. So she was perfect to have the bow. The bow gets 6 dice on the attack anyway. So off she went, and she got one of my 2 or 3 kills in the game. Africanus here is the strongest one of my Circus Maximus fighters. He was kidnapped as a child and sold as a slave. He's acrobatic, so he never has to take a agility roll when climbing terrain that's lower than 3 gradus. So any of the small items like carts and stalls and stuff, he can basically just jump over, which is quite useful. And I caught my friend out on a nice little charge over an obstacle when we were playing, because he hadn't realised. 7 health, so again, the most survival of the fighters so far. 6 attack, so sadly the 1 point he's missing to be 25 is off his attack roll, but 4 defense and 7 agility. So the 7 agility is a little bit pointless with his acrobatic skill, but that being said, any longer jumps or agility rolls, at least he's got 7 dice to do it. Verena was happy to sleep with livestock, which is possibly due to her next skill, which is she is hideous. This fire automatically triggers panic in the mob when within 6 gradus. Now, at first I thought, well, that's not a great skill, that's not very useful. Then I remembered that panicking mobs can crush opposing fighters. So if you line it up correctly, you could move her to within 6 of a mob. They will panic, run away directly away from her, and if there's an opposing fighter the other side of that mob, they get crushed. And I think it's straight up 2 damage, I believe, if the mob runs over them. So that's actually quite a good card. And if I didn't want the mob to panic for whatever reason, I can always use Augustina to stand next to the mob first to calm them down as Verena walks past with a hideous face and off to see her livestock. And then I've got Severina. Verena, he's got 7 health, 5 attack, 4 defense, and 7 agility. So again, sadly, the points she's missing are on her fighting value. So this whole gang so far is sort of average-ish health, better with a couple of them. Average attack, but pretty good agility on the second 2, but pretty poor agility on the first 2. So Severina is... she's got one of the stories that I actually have got repeated on one of the cards, where she races brightly painted rats for sport. But she's also beloved. So the same as Augustina, if she stood next to a mob, then they won't panic. So skills-wise, it was disappointing to get 2 of the same skills. I'd like a bit more variety on that. Also, I'll go over the blessings in a second as well. So she has 7 health, 6 attack, 4 defense, and 6 agility. So again, pretty strong stat line. Attack 6 is good. I'm happy with that. It's the 5 attacks that I'm a bit, which is only Verena to be fair. But again, 23 points. Yeah, strong, decent card. So the downside of using these 5 together, one, I've got 2 of the same skill, but that does help a little bit with the hideous skill. The other downside is I've got 3 blessing of Saturns and 2 blessing of Minervas. Minervas I'm fine with because that's the healing one, but the 3 Saturns are the replacing coins on a 6. So it kind of, if I'm going to make the best use of them, I'd have to use a lot of disposable coins and hope I roll those 6s to be constantly changing it up. If I'm trying to make the most of the blessings, I would prefer a mixture of the other blessings, but the options are there. The prayers aren't there to be, you probably don't want to build a gang around the prayers that you've got, but I think I didn't really make use of the blessings when I was using them in game. Not the Saturn one. The Minerva one I rolled for. I don't know if I ever actually succeeded the roll, but I certainly was rolling for it pretty much any turn that I had an injury. So so that's my Circus Maximus gang. I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep running these 5 together for the time being, and just I'm getting used to the game. And then I'll start sort of mixing and matching up. I just like the fact that it's sort of all from the same place. I like the fact that it's a bit fluffy, I suppose. Just having a quick look at some of the other fighters I've got. So my weakest fighter here is Albinus. in one of the games where I didn't use these 5 together, he actually sort of lost me the game because I foolishly charged him in and he got absolutely annihilated. So he has the Saturn blessing and a fight skill called Persistent where he can reroll a failed prayer. So basically when he uses a disposable coin, he can roll a 6 or try and roll a 6, and then if he fails he gets another roll of a 6, so it gives you a bit more chance to replace that coin, which is kind of alright. So his with Saturn with him is a little bit better, but he's quite weak. He's only got 5 health, 3 defense, 5 agility and 6 attack, so again he's one of my weakest card that I have on the table. Sabonis is my strongest. He was actually the first fighter I opened. Once killed a boar with a broken spear, and he is also hideous actually, which yeah, like I said, it's really good in situationally. It's really good, which most of the skills are, I suppose, but some of them are a bit more better. But he's got the top stat line 7747, 25 points, bit of a beast. Just lacks the ability to use the mobs as some other people can. I'll just pick out a few bits from the other ones. Cornelius got the strong fighter skill. So when she grapples, I assume, this is an assumption, normally when you're grappling, or brawling, sorry, when you win a brawl, you can throw your opponent up to the number of inches that you win the fight by. The strong ability says this fighter pushes opponents up to 4 inches in a brawl. So I assume she can always throw them 4 inches, no matter what you actually win the fight by. I might be wrong about that. I might be reading something wrong in the rules, or I've got the wrong gist of it, but as far as I'm aware, I would assume that that means she can always throw them up to 4 inches. If someone wants to sort of correct me on that, that would be great. Laurentiis has a good skill. He's elusive, so he cannot be target of a range attack unless he's within 6 inches. So that puts him immune to slings, bows, spears at long range. Obviously, can still be targeted once he gets closer, but a bit more survivability options there. And then Severine is here, is a local hero. This fighter is never can never be the subject of a mob's rage. So a better fighter, if he's fighting nearby mobs, doesn't have to worry about getting attacked if the mob rages at him. So yeah, that's my gang, or that's my gang members. So a quick overview. Basically, yeah, it's what you want to do. Do you want to combine different gangs and just give yourself the most variety? Do you want to do what I'm planning on doing and running the same gang members? Obviously, you don't have any control over what you're getting in the packs, so it might be that you don't have a choice. If you've only got 5 gang members and you're playing a 5 gang member fight and you just have to go with what you've got, fair enough, you can do that. It's just being aware of what each fighter can do, and how best to utilise them. So look at the skills they've got. Where is that fighter going to be recommended? Obviously, in my case, Verena here with Hideous isn't going to be the best place to fight around mobs, or at least if I want the mobs to be around. It can be useful in making mobs run away if your opponent's got some hidden fighters, because it can reveal the fighter when the mob panics. So again, kind of a useful skill. It's better than what I first thought it was when I first read it. Yeah, there's so many layers to the game when you're actually building your gangs. I'm not really looking at the Denarius coins in this video because I don't feel like the selection I've got is necessarily the best. Let's rephrase that. It's not that it's not the best. I don't think there is any best in this game. Again, I think very much like the other games I play, in terms of like Test of Honor, I don't think there's any right or wrong choices. I just think it's getting to know your choices and using them in the best possible way. which takes a few games to get used to. So I don't want to talk about the coins too much at the moment. I've obviously mentioned a few in the video, like the bow and things, but I will, once I've got a few more games under my belt, I will maybe have a look at some of the coins. I need to get a few more of the coins anyway, because I do feel like I'm missing a lot of the basic ones that I think will come in handy, like slings. I don't have any slings. So yeah, we'll see. Again, the coins aren't the be all and end all of everything. So yeah, I'm going to get back to painting some of my models now. I hope you enjoyed having a look at my gang members, and sort of me sort of going on about how I would possibly use them. Any questions, leave a comment in the video below, or give us a shout on Facebook at the Combined Ops team, and I'll do my best to answer them. Or look out for me on the Gangs of Rome page, and give me a shout. Sure, talk about what fighters you guys have got, how you plan on using them, and a big shout out to Adam and Andy and everyone else involved for creating an excellent game. Look forward to seeing you in the streets of Rome.